Hello and welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast. I am your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. This is another of the designers and makers series of, I used to call them interviews, but they're more like chats at this point because they certainly don't have a script besides the first couple of questions. I'd like to introduce you to Ian. Ian, welcome.
Thanks for having me. These should be your fireside chats. I think.
Oh yes, my fireside chat. So I'll get the I'll get the electric fireplace going for this one. Uh, Ian is from Silver Bulette Publishing. It's him and Rocky, and they've been doing this now. You've been doing this for a little bit now, right?
Yeah, what maybe 2 or 3 years. I guess we kind of started things quickly. Started sort of on a whim that Rocky has a huge mega dungeon that he's been like his goal is to publish. So we were kind of wanted to wet our feet, learn how to do things, figure things out, and continue to sort of hone that as like our ultimate goal of putting that out for him because it's sort of dream of his.
Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, we'll delve deeper into that. I'm going to hit you now with the 5 questions, or 5+ questions. We shall see. As I ask everybody, tell us about your first RPG experience.
My first RPG experience. It was first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that an older cousin of mine had brought a milk crate full of books to my grandparents down on Cape Cod one summer when we were trapped there. So we just started right in, and my cousin like ran us through some modules he had, and we went from there. We did a little bit of the Dragonlance modules that summer, which are not great modules in my opinion. They're great for when you're 10 years old because they're such a rail, but not too much creativity in that stuff.
Well, they have things like no matter what you do, the following NPC must be present in the last scene or whatever. I kind of remember some of that. Never ran it, I must admit, but I did own it.
Yeah, I don't think you were missing much from them. You're better off reading the novels.
Right, and the novels were at the time, when I was a teenager or whatever. It was popcorn fantasy. That's what I call it now. Of an enjoyable enough read, not on the level of Tolkien or other authors where you reach this level of, I don't know, it actually being respectable. Dragonlance, even amongst my friends, was fun, but we used to joke about, it was not high quality fantasy.
As kids, we read the heck out of those.
Oh yeah, I personally, the first trilogy was better than the second trilogy, but isn't that always the way?
Yeah, many trilogies go downhill as they get on.
As they milk them further. That's usually the problem. All right, here, question number 2. What is your go-to RPG system and why?
Oh, geez. I jump around a lot. I often, if I have to just start running all of a sudden, it's almost always Swords and Wizardry, just because I know those rules backwards and forwards, and I like a thinking game like that. I've been running some 5e lately, but I'm classic in my gaming group for saying, hey, I want to run some Top Secret. Let's play Top Secret for a bit. Or, hey, I want to do some Shadowrun. Let's do Shadowrun for a bit. Trying out new systems and playing with them.
Damn, that's how I was when I was younger. I don't have that ability these days to learn new systems for the most part. It's a lost skill. All right, race as class, yay or nay?
I'm not a big fan of race as class. I think even when we played systems like that when I was a kid, we'd always sort of adjust because we grew up with did a lot of AD&D, so it's like the dwarf was always the cleric for a good 5 years, and like the elf was almost always a ranger or a magic user. It was so we wanted those extra class abilities for the dwarfs. I mean, I remember being like a kid and thumbing through that second edition dwarf source book for over and over and over. I loved that one. Awesome art in that one too.
Oh yeah, the complete book of dwarves, which was better written and more balanced than
That
the
was
complete
one of
book
that and
of
Arms and Equipment
elves.
were the two that I loved. Elves I found a little. Elves and bards, you're like, yeah, the bards would.
Well, the elves book had blade singers, which pretty
Yep.
much broke the game if you allowed them in. My my group from high school and college, we get together once a year in the late spring, and we still talk about blade singers. That's how much of an impact that one kit had on us.
And it was,
God. All right.
there's in
Go
even
ahead.
3.5, it was like some of the elf mixed class that sort of broke the system again.
See, I don't have much experience with third edition, whether it was 3 or 3.5. I don't know the books. Don't get me wrong. I just wasn't playing until I found like I was until I found the OSR. So I was like a collector through third edition, I guess you could say. That's pretty pathetic. Uh, all right, where do you stand on Save or Die? And I'm not talking about the podcast. I'm talking about the mechanic, I guess.
I like Saber Die. I'm not
Okay.
against that. I feel like if it gets to that point, you've done something stupid. Like you should be feeling it. It shouldn't be a surprise if you're saving or dying. So I did what John Hirschberger was running in North Texas and took out a couple people with a save or die because they just like foolhardily walked into some corridor without checking anything out in the dark, and poison gas got them. If they had slowed down, looked around.
That
Yeah, oh, it
that can do
definitely
it to
will.
you. All right. What would the teenage you think if they could see what you would accomplish in a hobby by this point in your life?
What do I? That's a,
Yeah,
that's what like
it's a
what?
tough
Huh?
one. I know.
I don't think I think I've done a fair amount in the hobby. I mean, like I was pretty flattered when Matt Finch asked me to run some of his Mithras Tower stuff when he was gone. So I mean that's a pretty
Right.
huge compliment from a DM like him to ask to fill his shoes. Um, yeah,
Well,
oh yeah.
especially with
We
the
had some
size of
good
those
sized groups and it
groups.
was a blast. It's I think Matt knows that I'm thinking heavy, puzzle heavy, uh, and deadly as well. So I also I'm classic for hanging that MacGuffin right out in plain view to try to taunt the players to getting it,
Right.
despite its deadly consequences. But I mean, I think we're doing well. As this isn't, I never actually thought I would be doing something in the RPG industry. I kind of just did stuff for myself. Rocky sort of pushed us to it, and I was all about it. I think he he has some definite dreams and goals with this, and I'm more than happy to fill it out and help him do it. I mean, we're pretty close friends, and I'll be excited when we finally have hardcover print copies of his Mordmar dungeon, and just to see where that goes. And he knows the mega dungeons like nobody else, so it's something. But I think I'd be surprised. I never considered this a career, and I mean, I guess it isn't for us. We just do it because we love putting stuff out. We like playing, we like running, we like coming up with something neat, something new, something clever. I think that's our goal for this, is just to share it. Right now we're working on sort of thieves adventure, because he and I talk like everybody. We're like, oh, thieves guilds, and we're pretty firmly believing that there's not like one thieves guild in every city, as many people often do, especially when you're younger. So we had that Godfather-esque sort of like, maybe there's one gang on top, but there's others there. So the module we're putting out now is sort of some of those lower level sub gangs, and some battles between. So all these little vignette missions where you can do things to support a gang or to hinder another gang, with the ultimate goal of causing some displeasure from the guy at top towards the gang you dislike. But they're
Well,
and
that would be
we've
like Machiavellian,
it's different.
discord
It's
going on.
not something. We set up the adventures too, so that because
That's nice.
we talked about it a lot and looked at it, and we bounced ideas off some friends of ours. We chatted with, got Skeeter in, because if he says it's good, we're like, all right, we need a good way to get out of this thing, because now it's crazy, and we gotta take a step back. So I think we made sure that there's a way to get out without being a murderous villain. You can take the middle of the murder hobo way, or you can take the good way, and a lot of them sort of have that moral dilemma in it. Whereas, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna help this innocent person, or are you gonna kill them, rob from them, or are you gonna accomplish your mission in a way that benefits everybody? So not really on the rails kind of adventures. We set up the settings, we set up the characters, and kind of toss you in the sandbox, which is nice. We're also working on a notoriety system for that one, so because we were like, we wanted to make sure we got the guards in, and we didn't want people just cutting throats right away. So we kind of set up a system of how hard the guards are looking for you, depending on what you do. So.
Well, that's all. I was talking the other day, at least it came up last night in Tavern Chat, too, is the whole thing about the way we run games, or the way games wind up turning into these days, is like you said, it's murder hobos. There really is no parlaying. There are no captives taken by either side. Defeat means death. And in a situation like you're talking about, if you're killing everybody that you come into contact with, that you might
that's for sure.
different goals with.
I was always classic
Especially
when
in
we
an
were
urban
younger, because
environment, you're going to be
my
marked
brother
for
and his
death
buddies
yourself.
would murder my whole towns. Is that and Rocky does this too. Even now, he has like a town where he's like, no, they heard swamp cows, and it's got to bleep us, but they're all like 4th level rangers that are doing it, so you can't go in and start cutting throats, because the town is literally an army of 4th level rangers. I was always classic for doing that too. Like, that may look like a just a peasant, but they're actually everybody in this town is a 3rd level fighter, because they're veterans of that fearsome orc war that ended 2 years ago. And it's slows the players down a bit.
Yeah, I personally, I like the idea that your players are a little bit more restricted in their murder hoboing, because it really does become a game where other options are taken off the plate, because when your players kill, or the players' characters kill everything they encounter. Why would anything they encounter, one, give up, or two, why would anything you encounter ever look to take prisoners if your party is defeated? And that's it's a gameplay that when I was first playing, my players, and I think we parlayed a lot of times,
Oh
trying
yeah,
to
we
avoid
we always tried
fights that we thought were too balanced
to
or
either
balanced against
recruit
us.
the enemies
And I don't see that these
or
days for
get
the
them
most part.
under there. Pathfinder was great for that. I know I played in a Pathfinder game for a number of years, and my character I just dumped a bunch of stuff into those goofy negotiates and persuasion skills, and I would just talk to every single monster we encountered. As neutral character. So I'm like, oh, Dark Elves, hey, what's up? What's your goal? Maybe we can help each other out. Just to try to avoid those combats. So I think it drove the DM crazy at first until he. I definitely think he became a better DM because of it, but it changes the way the game rolls. Wondering if everything isn't just able to be chopped up and isn't just a stupid monster, but actually has some intelligence behind it. I think that's why I like hobgoblins too. They're so organized and militant, but they'll chat with you. They're lawful, they'll follow the rules they set out. That they might have evil intent at the end of the day, but they make a deal.
Yep.
They'll stick to it.
Right. They might rules lawyer you with the deal they made. I know I've played them that way, but they do have their word is it's a loose bond. It is certainly a
Yeah,
bond,
agreed.
though, more so than other
their word is their
evil
limit and
humanoid
their
races
bond.
that you can deal with that
That's
you can't trust.
like they agree to do
Negotiate
something,
with.
they'll do it. But that's all they're going to do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
but I love that. I mean, that's the
Right.
best way
Right.
to
Like
get players involved
they're
too. I
sticking
think
to
and get them
exactly what was their
thinking more
interpretation
about the
is
big
going
picture
to
stuff
be
than
generally
just
by the letter.
how do we get the best odds of
Yes.
chopping this thing up.
Well, I remember when I was playtesting D&D Next, and we purposely put together a group of players. Our DM did that were 3E Pathfinder players and 4E and old school gamers. And I remember one of the old school gamers. We were surrounded by goblins trying to protect someplace, and the player makes this huge speech. We were doing this in Hangouts and I guess Roll20 or the other BTTs back then. And the DM rolls some dice and goes, "Yeah, you know what? You've convinced them to let you retreat." And the third edition player freaked out and had a meltdown because what skill did he
Use common
use? It's like,
sense.
no, he
That's
told
something
them
use.
he was
But
convincing. I
that
gave
kills me
him,
too when
but there's no
DMs
what skill
like
did
I
he use?
always
If he didn't use
assume
a skill, you can't
that a
do
player
that.
is
I
gonna
was like,
tie their shoes is gonna
you use common sense.
when you get into skills, it's when you start nitpicking them like that it bogs down a game so much that like riding. That's a skill that always kills me. People go, well, you can't ride without riding. It's like, no, you can't ride in full plate at a full gallop on a warhorse with a lance through a raging battle, but you can ride down the road. Like that's not challenging. It's not. There's no reason to use a skill if there's no challenge involved.
Right. Mhm. Right. The average, well, maybe not a peasant, but the average commoner who's on a horse, maybe he's passing messages back and forth. He's not wearing armor. He's not armed. He doesn't expect to get into combat. You know, a lot of the skills that got introduced, I guess, way back in the Wilderness Survival Guide, the Dungeoneer Survival Guide. Uh, the idea we embraced it right away, of course, because every book that came out with 1E we embraced. But the skills which you would think would open up the game until we adjusted those first couple of months, they limited the game because we did have that mindset of if you don't have the skill, you can't do it. And there's a lot of things you kind of go. It's almost like, what if I don't have a skill to climb a ladder? I can't climb a ladder. It's you have to. I like you said, you common sense. There are basic abilities basic skills that people generally share. At least they would in this world, these fantasy worlds or whatever science fiction. You know, I don't think that any character
Yep,
that's on a
anything.
spaceship should
But
need a
I do like
skill to
fifth
use a
edition. I
vac
think
suit.
has gone
But
a
if you
long
want to
way
maybe do
towards
combat in a
sort
vac
of
suit without
grounding a lot
penalties,
of that
yeah,
stuff too, with their proficiency and like profession, and making it a little bit more achievable for players. And I mean, I've used that, and I explore. I have a like a real heavy 3-5 player in my group that I run the fifth edition game for, and it's been a struggle with him when he's like, well, how do I do this proficiency? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, just, like if you were a sailor, you know how to sail, like you can start helping other people. Oh, you don't have it, you can learn how to do it. And sort of setting up some systems for that, but not making it such a die roll heavy system that it bogs down the game, like those fourth edition skill challenges, which were terrible.
To be honest with you, and again, I owned the core books for free and the different DMGs that came out. And the DMGs were interesting reading, and I even had
Yeah,
the trade paperbacks when they kind of like did 4E light or
yeah,
whatever they wanted to call it. I couldn't. It was weird. So it was the last gasp of trying to make some money off the system before they let it go. But I never fully grasped 4E as to how I could play it out because it didn't seem to play out like third edition. I could read the books, even though I think I played one online session of 3E. It was easy enough to see the progression from 2E to 3E, but the progression from going from third edition to
well, it
fourth
just kind of
was
went straight into
reinventing
those
the
I
wheel
mean,
that
they made the
needs to get
jump with that
reinvented,
that
in my
3-5,
opinion, and that's why
all
I
of those
was never
miniature
able to get
war
into
games
it.
essentially that they put out with that huge mini line, which was one of the reasons they survived, was all those sweet minis. But 4 was that they were like, well, all right, how do we make this miniature war game
Oh
into
yeah.
D&D? And I guess it worked for that, but I mean, it's a slow game because it's like playing Warhammer with a small group, and everybody takes forever to do all these things, and it's just not a great system to play a role playing game in.
Yeah, I think that their plans had the idea that the VTT that withered on a vine was somehow going to enhance play and speed it up. And when the VTT and its planned, I guess, marketing of pay as you go didn't happen, I think that
Yeah,
really hurt
and
their
that's
plans
actually
for 4E. I think they
you're
were gonna.
probably right about
I've
that,
never
because
heard it
especially
said,
was
but
like that was always
I
the
think the
promise of
two were
this
integral to
that online
what their
system that
plans
would make
were
things
at
easier,
the
and it
time.
just never came to fruition.
Yeah, and I really should do an
And there's
episode
still, I
like
mean,
going
it
back in
wasn't that long
history of
ago. You could
what
still
happened with that
chat with people and like
because that is
get
a
them on the
weird ass
record and hear a
story
bunch of
of why
people,
that VTT
explain from their point of view or their
became.
memories what occurred. It would be that would be interesting.
Oh, it would be, but then you also have like the crime drama that is on the outside of that one, with what happened with the main programmer, and you're just like
Yeah,
you
that was
kind of turn your head and you go, wow,
that was I think
this
that
is
was
like one of
about the
those
same
like
time
I don't
what
know
Catalyst and
made to
Shadowrun 2
lifetime
were
movies
having
that
all
could be
sorts of
made.
weird legal issues with their was it the the Wild West of the late '90s, early 2000s.
It was it, yeah, it was a very strange time in the hobby. I'm not gonna say it was the dark days, but it certainly was a very strange time to be collecting because you didn't know which companies were going to be around in a year or two to support the products that we're putting out. You could just see it on the writing on the wall. That's why a lot of these companies, uh, some of them got bigger, like FASA got bigger and then imploded and became Catalyst, and then spun off FASA after it was FASA Interactive. Oh, that one I would
Yeah,
actually
I'm sure
have to get
there's
like
some
a
deals that people can't
Wikipedia
talk
page to
about.
refresh my memory on what happened with FASA. That one flamed up and then flamed out. Well, I'm sure you're like me. You go to these conventions and you talk to people and that are involved in the industry, and before
Yep,
the
yeah, I've
conversation
had a
even
few of those
starts, you get the
conversations.
and this can't be repeated or blogged about or talked about. It's like fuck. Yeah, and it's like, oh man, I got this great. It would make
You have to do a
for a
Law and
great
Order style
episode, a great, and
reenactment,
you're like, man,
like a
I can't even.
radio play for
I couldn't
those.
even hint at this.
Uh,
It's just like, oh god, kills me sometimes.
yeah, and then just so we get a bunch of people and just act it out, but it will be a very similar script
Oh, that would be
to
wait,
what
the
actually
names
occurred.
have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah,
Very, yeah, very similar, but all company names would be like totally
I,
changed. Just like,
I'm
you
sure
have to have
Matt's
like
Tome
a
of
random
Adventure design
table. It's
has
like, all
that in
right,
it. So
just make 3 rolls in a random table for your company name, and then we'll go from there. It has everything else. Damn. That's actually an interesting thought to drag that book out, and I'm gonna roll some random game company names using the Tome of Adventure Design as an influence, and then I can
that's
talk
what.
about
Hey,
stuff that I can't
I
talk
am
about.
willing to play a part in that radio
Mm,
drama. That would be fun.
wouldn't that be interesting? You're a bit influencing.
It'd be like recording an episode of The Shadow.
Yeah, it'd be a kicker. Yeah, we can always do it at one of the conventions. That's you know. Listen, when we were doing James and Glenn were doing the fake commercials at North Texas podcast. We would generally speaking, like the big one, which had even Rach as a voice in it. We just did what we improvised it on the spot and did a dry run. Said, "Holy shit, this is good. Can we pretty much kind of keep the script?" And it was like, "Yeah." And then the
You,
second one was the first one we recorded was the one
you can
that we
come do a commercial with
put
us.
into the podcast. I still
Silver
think it's
Bulette
classic.
and Skeeter Green Productions will
The
have a room,
Pathfinder
and
by the
North
pound.
Texas will be running a lot of games and doing some stuff. So should be a blast. Yeah, it should be a blast. We got a lot of stuff planned.
All right, sounds like a plan.
So well, we've got a setup of
Well, all right. Now,
we
here's the
basically
point.
grabbed a
Tell us,
big
tell us what the
private
plans
room.
are.
We will have product for sale, but that's, as you have met Rocky, Skeeter, and I, taking a whole lot of time to try to push people to buy stuff is not something that we're always after. We want a game, so we'll be running a lot of stuff. We'll be running everything from Cthulhu to settings from stuff that's either just been released or is
Oh yeah.
like going to be released by all three of us. I know Skeeter's got huge map too that of he shower curtain mapped it for one of his adventures. Yeah, the map is cool too. Just the map design is great too. I was doing some line drawn mapping
Oh
stuff for
boy.
him for that look, that classic look. Um, and that looks great. We'll have a bunch of our thieves settings in there, and definitely be doing some Cthulhu. I know Alex Camera was interested in running a couple quiet games in there because it's a setting away. So we'll definitely have a good lineup of great DMs running stuff the whole time, and people are welcome to come in and check it out, or just hopefully sign up for some games. It'll be a blast. Yeah.
Texas is always a blast.
Yeah, we like Texas. I'm a little disappointed game holds on
If I could only
Halloween
do one
next
convention
year.
a
I'm
year,
still trying to figure that out,
North
but
Texas.
we'll
Just for
see
the
what
NTSC.
happens with that.
Yeah, no, that I saw that too, and I don't have any young kids. My son's 25, but
Yeah, I mean, if
my
I'm
niece is
going,
8,
it will be with my whole
and
family. So
she likes to get
that's for
auntie and
sure.
uncle involved in this.
Yeah, it might be fun. We got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old.
We'll
The 4-year-old will be, well, she'll be 5 by then, but she can be a handful.
Well, that'd be cool.
That's and she's probably the
Oh,
most like me.
sure.
She's
And she's your
she's
child,
something.
so
she's
that
a big kid, but
oh, I'd expect nothing less, but I just expect
I'm sure she will.
she's going to be make sure that she'll make sure that she makes her presence known.
So we've got that
So tell me,
that Thieves War one going
tell our
on.
listeners, what do you and Rocky have?
That's our next one. We're pretty much written on that one. We're gathering art, which is, I think, for small publishers is the biggest challenge, because art costs are not inexpensive. So that's a process for us to try to get good art that isn't just stock art, which is kind of the next move for us.
Okay, I can see that. Art can be a huge cost. I own more stock art than any company would probably ever need to use, only because every time I find
and that's pretty much
this is cool stuff. And
a lot of our profits have been turned back into art.
I don't actually need this right now. I don't know
we
if
own
I'll
some
ever
stuff
need it,
outright where
but
we have
I'd like to have
exclusive
some
rights, but I've kind of I've learned a lot of mapping recently. And I've really improved my mapping quite a bit, I guess. People are telling me it's better than average now, so that's always good. And I know, like, Alyssa Faden's been sort of teaching me probably how to use the Illustrator and actually draw on some of that. So I've got I can send you some of those files too. You can just kind of look at what we're doing, but it's been a very minimal amount of time I've put into it, but I've that having someone like that you can bounce questions off of really
cool,
like shapes that learning curve down. And and my line drawn stuff is really improved just by like chatting with Glenn Seal and some other people. But
it's
makes you
no.
I think makes it just that will reduce our costs. I think, which is because you could easily spend $1,000 getting 4 maps done.
Oh yeah, that's why I've been trying to play around with different mapping programs that allow you to use the end result commercial free, so you don't have to necessarily be a highly skilled cartographer to get something that looks decent. You're not going to get something that looks amazing.
She's like the Pablo
it's not
Picasso
going to be Alyssa Faden level, that's for sure. But stuff that's
map making at this
usable
point.
without
There's a couple people with the mapping skills at this point. It's all women too.
Oh my god!
That I think currently right now are some of the best mappers out there. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them that are just amazing. Like, you can't even. It's not a league I'd get it, but I can get in decent.
You're probably right.
Decent stuff.
you can play, single A, double A ball. Uh, I'd be happy to be a single A mapper. I think I could be very happy with that kind of a skill. Nowhere near the majors, but you know,
Yeah,
like
it's
like a
I'd say
teammate.
I'm like
It's
an
not,
NFL
just be able to do it for
lineman
the
at
fun
this
of it,
point. Making
and it's
I'm
not
making
totally
300
embarrass
grand a
yourself.
year. I'm not a star. I get a good hit in a season, and that's it.
There you go. Well, hey, right? You just don't want to screw up. Okay, it's like let me do my
But yeah, I'll
job
send you a
and
couple
be
of the
steady at
because
what
I
I
do a lot
do,
of like practice stuff now, but I'd send you some of the
and
stuff that
let my work prove
uh,
me, and don't
it's
let me
I'm
screw up.
pretty happy with it. I'll email you some stuff that you can post, take a look at, and make it free to use. That I'm just stuff to learn and get better. Um, but
Awesome.
that we're doing that always. Rocky and I have sort of two back burner
That'd be a lot
projects
of
we kind of
fun.
always work on, and one of them is uh, like a puzzles and traps book that we always kind of think of something and toss in there. But that's because that's something that I think people struggle with, and um, and we want people to be able to
Okay.
use a bunch of different traps and a bunch of different door traps that aren't just the same poison needle, aren't just the same sort of thing like that. And we've got some good puzzles in there. I've got a couple I really like that we're saving for that, but that one's not that's sort of the one that we're always like, hey, we should just keep working on that. And we just then one of us will put a couple more things in it. So that one doesn't really have a time frame. And then we're always sort of working on Rocky's Mordmar. He's digging that dungeon. He got a good method for that, where he instead of mapping out like this giant dungeon, he like it's I don't want to say it's modular. That might not be the term that he's using for it, but it's like set pieces almost like
Okay.
on each level. Like these are the 5 or 6 important like places on this level of this dungeon. And he kind of describes them really, really well and kind of writes them. But the nice thing about those too, that I really like the way that that those are being created is that like you don't have to take the whole mega dungeon. You might just like that statue square, or you might just like that the bath that he made, and you can easily pluck it out and stick it into your game anywhere you have it, which is nice.
Right. That's always fun, and I'm a very large proponent of stealing from published material for your home campaign, but not necessarily taking the whole cloth, but taking bits and pieces from different sources. And it keeps your players on your toes, especially if you have players in your groups that are like me, like collectors of every new published. I don't want to say piece of shit, but every new thing that gets published in the OSR, I gotta keep myself from grabbing everything because I'm a hoarder of OSR books, and it's hard when some of your players are the same because it's like,
I
okay, I'm
agree
only
with
going to use
that.
this.
The other
So
thing
and
we've
so's
been doing,
probably
so
already
so
read
Rocky
it,
has a lot of that
but if you take
Mordmar stuff,
pieces
is and
and
it's
you
like a
mix it
dwarven
up,
city beneath the mountain.
you keep them on their
That's
toes.
just pretty. He's got a whole history for it, which is great. But I've sort of been doing surrounding area stuff for world building, but same way like we do, like our thieves one is set in a city that it's on the list of fading map for that city. But we want a city that you could drop anywhere. It's not, there's
Okay.
not, it's, guys, king is ruling that city. That's it. But it could easily fit into whatever thing you have because it's, just a city. And it's, a short piece around its environs. It's not this huge, expansive map that we have to worry about sticking and making match other stuff. And I think that's something that he and I, as users of modules and other material, that's something that is, pretty important to us, is that when we're putting out stuff, that you can take
Right.
it and easily drop it into that homebrew setting that we know you're using random pieces of modules for. And hopefully one of those random pieces will be something that we put together. It's, what I find that it's the most realistic approach that we've encountered.
Right.
A lot of people are making, these like huge settings that, you've got your own world, you've got your own stuff in there. Like, and we know that's how I run. That's how he runs. That's, and it really is a matter of like all right, well, you're not going to, the module's tough to use if everything around it, we don't want to go to the Forgotten Realms. It's played out for me.
Right.
I want something new, and how do I just grab one thing and stick it in there? And I think we really want to cater to that too, is that, you want a sweet mega dungeon with a whole bunch of dwarves, grab Rocky's mega dungeon. It's amazing. Like, you want a cool city with like a well-developed set of businesses and, cool Thieves Guild opportunities. Grab this stuff, use that. But we don't want to make it so that you need the whole world map to do that.
Wow. That's a plug and play setting, or a plug and play mega dungeon. There's a market for that. I'm looking forward to this. This is the first I've heard of it, so therefore, actually, it's gonna be the first a lot of people have heard about it. Looking forward to this. That's cool.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're hoping eventually it'll be. We keep debating on like what are we going to do is to kickstart something, but it'll probably be some of Rocky's stuff for Mordmar that will be our first foray into Kickstarter, which, for us at least, means it'll be written. We'll have a bunch of as much art as we can afford, and our layout will be done, and then we'll just be using anything from Kickstarter to pay for printing and additional art, or replacing art that we don't like as much with really awesome art, hopefully.
That's my unofficial Kickstarter, and you're hitting all the points where I want to go ding ding. Perfect, on the money. That's it. Those are the basics to Kickstarter success. To give yourself a good foundation is to have it written. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, before we'd even consider it, we'd be. Knowing Rocky and I, we'd be done with layout. So, and we would just be like waiting for art. But really, for us, it's like that. Kickstarter funds is an access to stuff that we would be able to get better art.
I love it. At least this time it's not my dog in the background. She's patiently waiting in the next room for me to, when I sign off, she'll start barking because she knows, okay, Daddy's done. I can now.
That was just because my wife got home, so she's protecting the house.
She's like, somebody's outside. You need to know. Donka does the same, but she does it more like, Daddy, it's mommy. Oh,
there you go.
There we go. She going back and forth. She's like, she heard my name. Well, you know what? On that note, I think we've hit a good spot to wrap this up. Unless we're gonna have the dogs doing the podcast. Ian, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thanks for having us on or having me on. I appreciate it.
Folks, it's Silver Bulette. If you can hear me over the dog. And as always, God bless. Roll your dice well. Stay healthy. And I will talk with you all tomorrow. Later, folks.